Hello, everyone. I am Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to the Globetrotter Newscast for today, um, the 21st of March. Welcome, everyone, to this live stream tonight. I hope you all stand safe for that. I'm joined by Labour supporter Zach Chambers for tonight's update. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Charlie. Hello.
Hello. Now, I just want to start by talking about the European Union now, because as you've seen across the whole of the last week, there has been a huge surge across Europe with coronavirus. And Zach, where do I start with this? Lots of lockdowns coming on, isn't there?
Yeah, hi, Charlie. Yeah, interesting. I think this is what happens when you don't have a very good vaccine rollout over there, Charlie. Yes, France, Poland, Italy are all rushing into lockdowns. The city of Paris has gone into it just recently with lots of restrictions. Italy as well, with school closures and a lot. And I think Poland was the next one after us to be put restrictions on them. So yes, Charlie, this is what happens when you don't have a very good vaccine rollout. And the UK variant starts spreading over there, unfortunately. So yeah, it's unfortunate just to see what's happened there. I'm afraid, Charlie, in terms of what's happened. Yeah, another set of restrictions for European countries. The UK variant is the one that's spreading it, Charlie, I believe. The B117 variant, as we've all known it to be like, as well. So yeah, the European Union and the European countries in there have not only have somehow absolutely screwed the vaccines, they've also missed the point that they've also got a virus spreading, Charlie. And quite frankly, it makes them look so bad and so unprofessional. Considering they're 27 countries, and they thought, you think they will work together or anything like that. This hasn't gone just as badly as you think it could be, Charlie. And this has been another bad week for the European Union. Let's just say it as it is. This has been another bad week for the European Union. Not only with the vaccine threats, so you're cutting on exports potentially to the UK, but you also got those third waves. And they're clearly unhappy with the AstraZeneca contract because several countries then suspended the rollout of the vaccine for concerns of blood clots. Only then a few days later for the European Medicine Agency, Charlie, to say, oh, it's all fine again. So it's a bit of a slam dunk slap in the face, really. I mean, some of it could be general concerns, but then again, you think there's a political element coming over into this, like what everyone assumes, based on how they've behaved recently. That's a bit of a worry, but it's been a right old mess, hasn't it, Charlie, for the European Union? I say that as a passionate, who's someone who passionately used to wanted to remain in the European Union for quite a while now. Even I realised they've had a bit of a screw up on this, Charlie. I think so. Yeah, it's gone horribly. It's a bit childish as well. They're the ones, unfortunately, who's really getting jabbed in the back, unfortunately, for them, Charlie. Whilst we're flying off with 877 vaccines in the last 24 hours. I don't even think the European Union managed that alone. So
was it 817,000 or something?
Something like that. But goodness me, Charlie, what a last 24 hours in vaccines we've had. The last 48, I should say. We've broken 2 records in that time, Charlie. We're getting close to that 1 million mark. I will be surprised if we do make it, because there's going to be some shortages coming up, Charlie. But we're smashing those records whilst we can smash them.
Yes, and guess who got vaccinated the other day? Someone very famous in our country.
Yeah. So I saw that the Prime Minister got vaccinated. I don't know if you're referring to that famous person or are you referring to the other famous person.
Yeah, Boris Johnson got his Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine on Friday, I believe. And he said it was absolutely safe. It did not hurt at all. He didn't feel a thing.
Can I just say something? I love the fact that he chose the Oxford vaccine out of all of it. It's a nice little slap in the face to European Union leaders, I have to say. Emmanuel Macron, it seems, I actually read this comment, and and it's actually quite funny, right? Okay, but people are saying that Emmanuel Macron's more vaccine skeptic than Piers Corbyn is. Yeah, I can't believe I even make that comparison, but yeah, good for Boris. He's our leader, whether you like him or not. And it's important that our leader is healthy and well, and it's gets the vaccine. Obviously, he's waited all this time, Charlie, to be fair. He's let everyone else get it before him. Fair enough, because you got all the older people that are more vulnerable than him that needed to be vaccinated before. It was good for him to wait. Keir Starmer also got vaccinated as well a few days ago, Charlie, if I'm correct in saying. He was also the leader of opposition. I believe he got vaccinated Wednesday, I think. He got Tuesday, Wednesday. So I think Keir Starmer got vaccinated. So that's the top political leaders in our country that's been vaccinated now, Charlie, which is great to see. No matter what side in the argument on, it's great to see them being vaccinated.
Great to see that.
Yeah,
great to see that. I think honestly, we've got to get people vaccinated right now. It's about saving lives. Half of the adult population now received the first dose of a coronavirus COVID-19 vaccine. Fantastic news. Thanks to the NHS. Incredible effort to get the country vaccinated for this 4 months from the first vaccination of Margaret Keenan all the way up to over half of the population now receiving the first dose. It's a fantastic achievement. Absolutely fantastic. And Zach, as you mentioned, supply shortages. Boris did say the other day that they're still going to have more vaccines than they did in February. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm surprised. You see, Boris Johnson said, the Prime Minister seems optimistic about this. But there was a letter that came out. I think it was Wednesday, just Wednesday, that the NHS sent a letter out to all hospitals saying that there would be a significant shortage or drop in supply for the month of April. So what the letter said, right, was that they would delay vaccinating the under 50s so that everyone over 50 could get their second jab instead. Now, if you think about it, if you're having a slow and surprise, Charlie, it's more logistic to have people who have already been vaccinated want to take their second doses whilst the supply is limited, because the amount of people getting their second doses is more limited than the ones that are getting their first supplies, Charlie. So yeah, so that's logistical, but this is our first bump in the road, really, Charlie, with the vaccination rollout, I think, where the supply is going to start going down a bit for 4 weeks. It's going to feel like a long time, but hopefully hopefully NHS can still supply some vaccines, and people who are going to get their second vaccine should get their second vaccine. So that's the main purpose, Charlie. So yeah, there's a bit of a concern. Matt Hancock, by the way, didn't have, when that was announced, by the way, the Wednesday before Matt Hancock's press conference. Matt Hancock didn't seem to have a very good press conference that day, because he seemed to struggle. He seemed to downplay this shortage of supply, and to me, he came across a bit dodgy in that and not telling us the real reason why. Well, the real reason why is that there's a delay. They need to retest about 1 or so million vaccines, which is from a place
Serum
in India,
India. That's where it is.
Yeah, where this AstraZeneca vaccine is being developed. One of the factories that's coming over and developing, sending us over vaccines. So there is a delay in tests that are in there's about 1 million or so doses that need to be retested, and there is a delay not only for UK as well, Charlie, but still for basically the whole of Europe.
Yeah.
So there is a delay all around. So that's unfortunate. I hope they're safe. There's no real evidence as a European real definite link to blood clot, which is why some of these have been suspended. We don't know whether they are blood clots. They could be linked to blood clots for sure. We don't think it is. They probably just need to be retested just so it double works. But a little bit concerned. I don't think we should write it too that much though, Charlie, because hopefully, they will be delivered. And AstraZeneca do have contracts with the UK. They also have contracts with the EU. They will go by the contracts saying how much they need to be delivered by what time. And I'm sure there doesn't seem to be much complaint from the UK side. So it appears that AstraZeneca is still within their contracts in the UK side. It's just the EU lot that are moaning at the moment with the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yeah. I mean, Zach, will this affect the Pfizer jab as well is coming over to the UK? Will that be affected with Pfizer exports?
I think, from what I understand, is that I think this only applies to AstraZeneca. I think we're still getting Pfizer ones in, and keep in mind that's the one's a little bit less flexible. Remember, Charlie, because you need to store that you need to store it in a
fridge freezer, yeah.
But don't forget as well, Charlie, we're also going to get Moderna vaccines coming in as well. I think in next month, I believe.
Yeah, very, very soon, couple of weeks.
So we're going to get Moderna vaccines delivered as well. So that will be good. I think you need to also store them at a temperature, but then you can store them at a lower temperature, as far as I understand, which is much more convenient, but still needs to be stored. So it works like the Pfizer one in some way. But there will still be vaccine delivery. It will just be less than what we've previously got. There will be a bump in supply. That's okay, as long as it's still delivering. It's still that's the main purpose, though.
Yeah. And I think, so that's good. I mean, there's been a big row, Zach, over in the EU about the vaccination rollout. Ursula von der Leyen was actually threatening to block some exports of the AstraZeneca vaccine over to the UK. What do you make of this scandal?
I don't understand what they're playing at. There's several factors going into this, Charlie. There's probably the political factor, where they're upset that the UK is succeeding in its vaccine program. They went their own way rather than join the EU's one. They're upset that probably us succeeding. That's probably one factor. The other factor is and I have to say this, Charlie, this is completely shocking to me as well. You have the EU complaining that AstraZeneca is blocking their contract, is not obligating their contract with the EU, and yet not enough has been delivered, and so therefore they're accusing the AstraZeneca of a break of the contract. Yet what I don't understand, Charlie, is that if you're going to accuse AstraZeneca of not delivering enough vaccines, then maybe you should tell your countries not to suspend use of it. Because if you suspend use of it, you're not allowing vaccines to go out. There is some hypocritical political points in here, Charlie, with the EU, unfortunately. This is probably the most critical I've been used in ages, right? Okay. Get over the fact that, the Britain's doing well with its vaccination program. I'm surprised they're not whinging at Israel doing so well with their vaccination program. Or if I can put it in the same sentence, the US are doing quite well with their vaccination program as well. But I think they need to get over the fact I think they need to turn out into legal disputes, Charlie. And it's going to affect us as well, because if they stop blocking exports to the UK, then you know what's going to happen is we're not then going to get our vaccine. They're going to use it just as a political point. So it's a bit of a petty cat game, really, with the EU and AstraZeneca. And it's not looking make the EU very united. I mean, as I said before, Emmanuel Macron and Merkel makes Piers Corbyn look a bit more, vaccine skeptic than they do with some of their comments. So they might as well run for mayor of London now, because they're in the COVID skeptic lot. But Emmanuel Macron is a bizarre comment, because he's a liberal. He's a moderate liberal. Chancellor as well is like a moderate as well, and she comes out with some bizarre comments about that. And yet France as well, Charlie. Once the European Medicines Agency said the vaccine was safe, France then bans it for the use of under 50, or was it over 55s? I can't remember.
Yeah, 55s and over. Jeez.
I think.
What could I say? It was just dreadful, wasn't it?
Games here. It's just playing games, Charlie. I mean, there's no evidence there are issues for people over 55, because otherwise you would have seen all these old lot here dying from the AstraZeneca vaccine if there was problems with that one, which there doesn't appear to be, Charlie, because most of them got literally 95% of them got vaccinated. And yet the French are saying, oh, it's unsafe for all over 55. It's just nonsense, Charlie. I'm sorry. They're talking crap. They really are. It's pathetic nonsense, because all the elderly people who've been vaccinated are safe. They're not suffering. They took the vaccine. They're not for like zombies in their skeleton stones and everything like that. They're still alive. They're actually healthy. They can hug their younger ones again. I mean, goodness me, and the French think this all unsafe for the over 55s. This is just political posturing and poovering around from the French and the EU countries. I'm sorry, it's pathetic, and I don't normally like the EU, but it's just pathetic stuff, really, Charlie. It's just the sore losers hour. It feels like, the time when Donald Trump refused to accept election. They refusing to accept the fact that the UK is doing well with the vaccine rollout. What can I say, Charlie? It's very bad. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, and Zach,
OTT.
Yeah, Zach, I've got a question, because we're going to move on to foreign holidays, summer holidays now, and today we had Defence Secretary Ben Wallace on. I think it was Andrew Marshall or something.
Yeah, he was doing the morning rounds.
Yeah, he said you have to look. You have to look very carefully at booking a summer holiday because of the COVID surges in Europe. What do you make to his comments about booking foreign holidays at the moment?
He's right. That's to be fair. That slightly contradicts Matt Hancock, though, who a month or two ago said he was booking a holiday in Dover, for example, or holiday somewhere else, where he was going around supposed to booking holidays. So I think someone needs to tell Matt Hancock that he may not be safe on a holiday yet. But yeah, he's wise to think that. He's wise to think that. Let's just say that. Don't book your holidays yet. That's just I don't travel abroad anyway. That's the thing though, Charlie. I don't travel abroad anyway. I travel only here in the UK if needed to be. So, it's wise. It's necessary. There's still the UK variant still prominent around Europe. Countries, it's probably wise to hold off for now. I think as well. I have to say it was quite the sight to see for the French team. Play again in the Six Nations yesterday, whilst their empty stadium, whilst their country was literally on lockdown. So yeah, wise words from Ben Wallace.
That is the Defence Secretary Ben Wallace. But Zach, as well, the big question I have about this is: do you think the UK could lift their COVID restrictions potentially ahead of the EU on schedule if a vaccination rollout continues to be successful?
Well, they're gonna get restrictions lifted ahead anyway, because the EU is going completely opposite direction before us. So if anything, we're going in the right direction, and we'll probably get restrictions lifted before they do. And I just want to reiterate the point, Charlie, as well. The deficit there, I think it was only 33 from what I read, or something like that. It's late on its 30s, which was a result of the vaccine program not actually killing that many people, Charlie. You think of its success, it's been effective. Let's just say that the vaccine is working in terms of hospitalizations and deaths. There's only 300 admitted the other day. So yeah, the restrictions are going to be probably lifted 29th, and then into April. I think we're looking good for whether we get foreign holidays or not. That's still up to the task force.
12th of April, that's going to be convened, just to let you know. 12th of April, that is going to be convened.
That's the next stage. And then stage 3 is in May, where foreign holidays are maybe possible, depending on what the task force the government has set up on this comes out with. But possible. I think people need to hold off for now, Charlie. I think that's what I think for now. And there needs to be notice, obviously, because the advertisers are going to want their piece of their money, and the flight companies will want to be impatient to know. But hopefully we'll find out soon. For those who do want a little trip aboard.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Zach, Gleeson Andy was on Andrew Marr this morning as well and said the exact same thing Ben Wallace said as well.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to be carbon copy, really, to be fair, in this one. It's just the wisest thing. It's not really up for argument. To be fair, there was foreign holidays last year, thanks to the the Airbuses or
The travel corridors and that.
Travel corridors, yeah. I forget those names quite easily. Travel corridors.
That's fine.
Whether, yeah, what happens when it's all a year ago. But yes, yeah. I mean, if we had travel corridors last year, it's very much possible we'll get some this year. I think some countries are planning to open up anyway for holiday destinations here anyway, potentially this summer. So yeah, I see it likely. I see it likely, in my view, that it will happen, but I don't think we need to get too excited yet.
Yeah, please, if you're booking a foreign holiday, be very, very careful with that. I just urge you, be patient, and we'll let the travel task force, decide that for May in the coming months. We're going to now move on, Zach, to NASCAR, and I just have to say, this weekend we're at Atlanta for the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500. That event, I believe, is still currently going as we're recording this podcast right now. Chase Elliott once again goes to the back of the grid in that one. But Kyle Busch, go on.
Yes, Charlie, I just want to update you, actually, because the race is still ongoing. It's Kyle Larson that's leading at the moment over Ryan Blayman and Alex Bowman. Kyle, as you said, there was some cars, Chase Elliott going to the back of the field for some changes. It appeared to be a clean race, but it's been a Kyle Larson domination at the moment. I'm looking at timesheets at the moment, and he's about 10 seconds ahead because there's been a round of pit stops that's happened. Ryan Blaney second, Alex Bowman is third, Kyle Busch fourth, William Byron is fifth to complete the top five. Denny Bento is sixth, Austin Dillon seventh, Denny Hamlin eighth, Chris Buescher ninth, Daniel Suarez 10th. So Kyle Larson domination so far, Charlie, and he's won stage one as well. And it appears to be a very clean race, although the only caution there's been a few cautions. The only caution was being a competition caution on lap 25. And the only incident, really, to be fair, is Kevin Harvick, who had a flat tyre coming up to pit road. It looks like that Kyle Larson, we're coming at the age of stage 2 as well. Kyle Larson's going to win that as well. He's dominating the field.
Yeah, utter total domination for Kyle Larson. He's having a very, very strong race at the moment. But in the truck series, Kyle Busch actually won that one, I believe.
Yeah, well, it's quite a sight to see. Kyle Busch is normally very good in that. He dominates that whenever. He's not eligible for the championship because he's a Sprint Cup driver, so he's not eligible for championships or full-time season. He can't take part in the full season, actually.
So including the playoffs, like the chase and stuff like that, he can't take part in that.
Yeah, no, he can't be eligible for championship wins there. Unfortunately, because otherwise it just makes it complete unfair otherwise. Yeah, so he won the race. There was also yesterday in the Xfinity Series a nice little fight on pit road between Noah Gragson and Daniel Henry. I didn't see it, but there was a bit of a fight, and Kyle Busch was completely dominant, by the way. Completely dominated the field and won the race. He normally does well in the Truck Series. Normally does well.
I think that's his 60th win, I believe, in that series. By what I've read up as well.
60th win. He takes part in all series. He took part in the Infinity Series. He took part in the Camping World Truck Series, and this is his 60th win. He's won a title there as well, I believe, a few times as well.
Wow.
That's the strength of him. What a flexible boy he is.
That's at Atlanta Motor Speedway, just to let you know where this race is held. Next weekend, Zach, we go to Bristol for the Food City Dirt Race. What do you make about that?
Oh, I'm very excited for a bit of dirt racing. Bristol's normally done on tarmac normally. It's normally a fast short track that everyone goes fast, but this year it's the first Bristol race is a dirt race. And it couldn't get any more exciting than that, Charlie, because dirt races are slippy, slidey, and it's just such great racing, Charlie. There's always going to be about to be a surprise. And the race format's going to be a little bit different. They're going to do some heat build, and then they're going to have a main feature race as well, which I think is about 200, 300 miles long, around about that. But it's going to be a very fun race, Charlie. No doubt about that for sure.
I know it's the first I saw some of the circuit actually, Zach, as well. Bristol having the new dirt tarmac, all the dirt layered over the tarmac, and it looked quite cool. I saw a clip on YouTube of some trucks racing around the track, and it looked very slippery, didn't it?
It did. It looked very slippery. It looks slidey. It looks. Do you know what the thing is about it, Charlie? Is on dirt racing, it feels like they can. There's a lot more room to move about, Charlie. It feels like you could go 4 wide potentially. That's not something that you would normally be able to do on a tarmac course, because you would have certain lines put in place. So there's a bit more flexibility, really, to be fair, on a dirt track, Charlie. But there's also a lot more risk because you can easily spin out more on a dirt track. So yes, it's going to be some very exciting bit of racing, I think, for dirt racing at Bristol, Charlie, and a bit of a change for Bristol overall. And I'm looking for, and it's the first Cup Series race, I believe, Charlie, that is going to be doing dirt racing for many years now. And normally the Camping World Truck Series has gone to Eldora for a few times to do some dirt racing, but this will be the first time I think the Cup Series has done
yes,
dirt
it's
racing.
1970, I believe, for the NASCAR Cup Series as well.
It's incredible. Yeah. I look forward to that so much. It's going to be very exciting.
If you watch Disney Pixar's Cars, you'd know Doc Hudson. He's a very famous dirt racer. I think that's what a lot of the drivers at the weekend are sort of going to be trying to pay homage to.
Yeah, and I used to watch Cars I love the film. I love watching it. I watched Cars 2. I haven't watched Cars 3, surprisingly, but Cars 2 and Cars were probably the films that I most remember as a young teenager. They were great films to watch, certainly, and it's right up my street, Charlie. Watching that sort of movie, it was great, and I really enjoyed watching that. It was such a good film. I memorized some of the voices. I remember in Cars 2, Charlie, Lewis Hamilton made a cameo appearance.
Yeah.
As his car was simply known as Lewis. He didn't make too much of an appearance. He only made a 2 to 5 minutes appearance, but he did appear in Cars 2 for a little bit. As I remember very well. But you also hear some famous voices in the commentary box in the Cars. You will hear Daryl Waltrip, who used to be a NASCAR commentator for Fox Sports.
Very famous Daryl Waltrip.
Very known voices in here, and you'll have it's a great movie to watch. Cars was such a great movie to watch, Charlie.
You get to learn a lot about American motor racing as well. I mean, certainly the dirt racing, it's the dirt racing especially very, very famous in America.
And to be fair, Cars is what brought me onto NASCAR, because I didn't know what Cars was based on for a minute then, and then I realised it was based on NASCAR all these years later. I noticed the Richard Petty scheme was also featured in the first Cars movie as well. The thing is about it, Charlie, is in real life you wouldn't if there was a photo finish, you wouldn't go to a tiebreaker race a few weeks later between 3 vehicles. Let's just say that. But to watch, it was very memorable when I remember. And the thing is about it, Charlie, as well, you don't have tongues coming out the middle of your car as well. Not normally. I know it's crucial for photo finishes, but goodness me, I'd be a bit creepy if our ironies start creeping out the motor vehicles these days. We're not at that modern technology quite yet, Charlie, I have to say.
Nah, but these NASCARs are built for bodies and they're built for racing. So Bristol Motor Speedway this weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series. Going to be great. Food City Dirt Race. You can watch that on Saturday. But Zach, moving on to Formula One now. 1 week to go. This time next week, we'd be reviewing the Bahrain Grand Prix. And what do you make of next weekend for the start of the F1 season?
Oh, do you know, Charlie, how time flies by. I can't believe it's 1 week until the first race of the 2021 season. I'm so excited. It's just that time of season where, yes, it's here. Motorsport really truly is back when the F1 season gets underway. And it's going to be, I think there's a bit of buzz building around, Charlie. There's an element of unpredictability this time round. I feel like. I think when we started back in Austria last season, I think we kind of predicted what might happen in terms of like the qualifying order and all that sort of thing. I don't know if we can really say that this time round. But there's going to be a lot of points to prove, and this race and the next two will be the mark of who's where and what the order is going to be. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm very excited. And I just great. I'm so looking forward to seeing cars on tracks, drivers battling out, because this is what makes our Saturday and Sunday afternoon. Just seeing the cars, the fastest drivers in the world, battling it out across the world. And I'm looking forward to it, Charlie. I really am looking forward to it.
Yeah. And just to let you know, we've had some images released for the Jeddah street circuit, Zach. And first impressions, what do you make of it?
Wow, I have to say, it's another street circuit. 27 corners. My goodness me, that's a lot of corners. It looks like it's going to be a fast one, though, Charlie. It's going to look like it's going to be a fast one. I have to say, doesn't look like there's much room for overtaking. So this may be the high-speed Monaco, as I call it, because it doesn't look like it's getting much overtaking opportunities. I don't want to. I'm a bit concerned it may be a little bit boring, that race, because this is basically Monaco but with extra speed and length. I'm not too confident, but we'll have to see. Let's see the final product. Because you never know what. It's going to be very interesting. Watching Jeddah, which is going to be late in the year. It's under the lights as well. I like night races, I have to say. I do like night races. They do look better. Races do look better on the night. So at least we get to see the effects of the floor light up the cars and everything like that. That's one of the things I like about it. Yeah, I'm looking forward. I think let's give it a chance. Let's give Saudi Arabia a chance. I've seen people slag it off though, Charlie, because of the Saudi Arabia human rights records and all that thing. Well, we've gone to China all these years with their disgusting human rights records. But let's see. Let's give it a chance. I'm not too keen on the circuit. I think there's not enough overtaking opportunities. But it does look fast and does look bendy. So I think let's give it a chance when we go to it later in the year.
So that will be Formula One heading to Jeddah towards the end of the year as well. So that is all your motorsport news. But we're going to finish off, Zach, by talking about coronavirus again and about protests now. And this at the weekend we saw a couple of anti-lockdown protests and demonstrations taking place in London. What do you make of this, and what do you make of the police handling the demonstrations?
Yeah, I just want to bring you some news, actually, Charlie, because there has actually been some protests in Bristol tonight, and that protest has got out of control, I'm afraid, Charlie. That protest is to do with the police bill, also known, if you want to know in protest terms, it's called Kill the Bill protests. Unfortunately, it's gone a bit like some of those protests have gone in the US, unfortunately, where there's been police under attack. There's been buildings have been destroyed. Unfortunately, that's the protest that we do not want to see, Chai. I'm sorry, that's the images I've seen is disgusting, and you'll probably see it all over social media tonight, Charlie. But it does look disgusting. It's shameful. It's disgraceful. It does completely opposite of what they've supposed to be protesting about. I'm just viewing the images now, Charlie. I'm gonna actually. Do you know what I'm going to do? I am going to. Yeah. Okay.
It is, Luke. Can I just say about the protests? I can see a debate coming on in the House of Commons about this. Priti Patel was speaking the other day about this. It was just utterly crazy.
So, my screen, Charlie, but this is the scenes in Bristol tonight. Yeah, that is quite frankly disgraceful scenes in Bristol, really. If we just look at it, that.
Yeah. Oh, look at that's horrendous, isn't it?
That is a police station's a window being smashed in Bristol. Quite frankly, like disgraceful as well. It quite shocking scenes. I'm afraid, Charlie. I've got some.
It is horrendous. Well. It's horrendous. I have to say. I mean, look some comments here.
Look at the police. There's a lot of police here. You can see some smoke. One police van got set on fire, if you can see as well.
My God.
So there was screens smashed. A police van set on fire.
Oh God, that's by protesters.
That is by protesters. Now, people can judge who was behind the motive. I think it's disgraceful, whoever it was, because it genuinely was disgraceful who these protesters were doing. I mean, there is, Charlie, there's been a bit of a debate about protests recently. Obviously, the anti-vax one I thought was complete, I thought it was unacceptable there was a difference between the anti-vax protest and the one that in the Vidyard last week, which was for Sarah Emrod. You can talk about hypocrisy there, Charlie, no doubt about it. But this one in Bristol, the citizens are taking it into their own hands, where they've taken unacceptable behaviour and have really done what the government really want to see done, is crack down on protests. So there is we're talking in COVID regulations, Charlie. We're talking about the right to peaceful protest. I know there's been some debate over that, and there are some concerns whether you should peacefully protest. But stuff like what we saw in Bristol, Charlie, as you can probably absolutely should be met with full force. It's kill the bill protest. So I imagine it'll be far left protesters, Charlie. Now, some people will compare their activities to, Antifa and, some Black Lives Matter protesters. Obviously, most of the Black Lives Matter protesters were actually peaceful. I thought a 90% figure of actually was peaceful. But there's also the odd idiots out there that no fault. There's the odd idiots out there that probably have no groups that does disgraceful scenes, Charlie, and acting like a pair of idiots. It's completely unacceptable. If you protest peacefully, then that's absolutely fine, Charlie. But if you do stuff like looting, setting fire to a police van, destroying buildings, and then clashing with police officers, you're going to get what you deserve. Nigel Farage has tweeted about it. There's a lot of images coming out today about it. It's disgusting, Charlie. I'm sorry. I think you have a right to peacefully protest, but not destroy buildings, because it's completely not on, Charlie. I just think it's totally and utterly not on. If you want to protest, this is earlier, by the way, as well. This is the scene earlier.
The scenes are just
peaceful.
Ludicrous.
This was a peaceful protest early in Brazil. This was much more peaceful. Unfortunately, it's gone over the top, I'm afraid, Charlie. That's where the police presence was. It's disgusting, Charlie. It's not warranted. There's daylight where there were some clashes with policemen.
And I just want to show you that.
On.
Yeah, I just wanted to, just whilst we're live here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for Globetrotter Newscast, I was thinking you could share that with the listeners. Obviously, just because the scenes that we saw earlier in Bristol of the protests getting absolutely out of control. This happened last year in America in the Black Lives Matter protest. It got out of hand, and I have to say it got absolutely over the top. And I think as well, the Sarah Everard Virgil, what happened with that? The police were getting like out of hand. Lots of arrests were made.
I think, I agree. The problem with the Sarah Everard Vigil was that it was peaceful, and people thought the police abused their powers, breaking up a more peaceful gathering. This one's not. This is one by comparison is not peaceful. It's delusional. It's stupid. It's idiotic. It's destroying businesses. But I think there was valid comparisons though, Charlie, between the Sarah Everard Vigil and the anti-lockdown protests on Saturday, where we saw, not much classes. It seems like a bunch of anti-vaxxers and people doing Hitler salutes were not stopped by police and everything on the anti-lockdown protests. But the Sarah Everard Vigil was a peaceful one, and yet we had hundreds of more police officers than what we saw in the one in London. Now, I should point out, Charlie, there's a lot of anti-lockdown process because on Thursday there's going to be a vote in Parliament on whether to extend the coronavirus powers that the government have until October. That's likely to get voted through. The likes of Steve Baker have been on Scott Sofa Ridge this morning. I have to say for Steve Baker though, it's very likely they're going to vote that Labour and the SNP are going to support it. So it will pass. And as I said before, Charlie, I think it's necessary.
He's not going to be happy, isn't he, Steve Baker? And especially that Tory rebellion that's coming through.
There will be a Tory rebellion, no doubt, Charlie, but it will be outdone by Labour and SNP and Lib Dem support. So it'll probably get through, Charlie, no doubt about it.
Because for a lot, I think, I mean, for a lot of Conservative MPs, Zach, though, do they feel that the restrictions could go on for until the end of October, or is that just like coronavirus? Do they think it's just like coronavirus laws and imposing restrictions and stuff like that?
I think their argument is, Charlie, is that the backbenchers are saying some of the COVID more lockdown skeptic Tory MPs are saying, well, you're ending all social restrictions in June, so why are you ending the coronavirus powers in October? Someone was pointing out that the government have powers to delay local elections if needed to be, which they're not going to be. They're taking place planned. So there are legitimate points, but they're also necessary things because the coronavirus powers expire, I believe, at the end of the month, Charlie, on the 29th of March. March is when, which is when part 2 of phase 1 lifting restrictions begin.
Shielding ends at the end of this month as well, just to confirm that.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, Charlie, as well. The problem with if Tory MPs vote to remove the coronavirus powers, then that's a little problem because impose restrictions or do restrictions or lift restrictions. In fact, actually, you can, if you actually remove the coronavirus powers, you actually get rid of all living restrictions, which is unnecessary. It could cause more problems than what it seems, Charlie. Because there's unintended consequences if you remove a bit of legislation, Charlie, no matter what you do with it. There's always, you read the devil in the detail, and then you come to a conclusion. Now, these powers aren't needed. I think they need to last. They could end in September rather than October, but they are needed. And I think we do need to flex them out in a couple of months, just in case you ever need to use them again for whatever reason. So, yeah, it will pass, I imagine, on Thursday. But there will be a rebellion on the Tory backbenchers. I don't know what the number will be, but it sounds like it's going to be a big number rather than just a smallish Tory rebellion. But it will be outdone by SNP and Labour support, I imagine, which they'll vote through.
And Zach as well, Mark Harper then tweeted as well saying, why are we going to have this bill meant to be extended to October 3 months after lockdown's meant to be fully lifted? This is what he was on about earlier. And what did you make of Mark Harper's comments? I mean, could all restrictions be lifted but still have a coronavirus act in place in government?
That's the problem, though, Charlie, is that if you get rid of the coronavirus act, that means then technically does all legal restrictions end on March 29th if you vote to get rid of it all? That's a problem. And I think there's unintended consequences if you do that. Yes, there needs to be powers, Charlie, I think. Does it need to go on that long? That's up for debate. I think there's a legitimate debate about it. Is there some powers that are even needed in there? That's up for a legitimate debate. That's fair enough. But I think they are needed. I think there needs to be some clearing up, but I think they are needed, Charlie. No matter, I think so. From what I can see, you will probably need them for at least June, and September time if necessary. End of September. If all goes well and they're not needed anymore, you may find out, Charlie, that the coronavirus powers you may need in the winter time, because there's always the talk of maybe a little uptick in the winter. So you may need the powers then to do anything if you need to. But I think, they are needed, but they could end in September rather than October potentially. I think, in my view, but that one extra 1 month is okay. I don't really. It's not a big deal for me. Whether it ends in September or October, but those powers are needed, I think.
Zach, I'm just going to step in here now with my opinion on this. I just want to say that Nigel Farage, who was one of the COVID skeptic lockdown MPs, he's not in politics anymore, he used to be, said that with this coronavirus act, ministers actually announce things without any parliamentary scrutiny whatsoever. What do you make when Boris Johnson announces things without any parliamentary scrutiny under this coronavirus act?
I mean, that's a problem. I mean, there's two sides to this, Charlie. There's one that you need to enact powers via statute instruments in an emergency situation. There's no doubt about that. You'll probably need the powers, but also it should be some of these powers do have unintended consequences, like the protest ones, the powers and protest, and we've seen the consequence of that. So there does need to be a little bit of scrutiny, I think, legally and put into law. I think it's that fine balancing act, really, to be fair, Charlie. There's the need to use power if needed in an emergency, but I think we also need to debate and scrutinise legislation if through a parliamentary debate. So I think a debate and announcing things via Parliament needs to be done. Obviously, anything that needs to be announced by Parliament whilst they're in Parliament, whilst the Parliament is sitting, needs to be announced by Parliament first, and not via the media, which happens half the time.
I know, and I saw Sir Lindsay Hall, the Speaker of the House of Commons, was absolutely fuming when Boris Johnson announced restrictions without any parliamentary scrutiny. I mean, this has been the biggest problem of the government throughout the crisis, Zach, hasn't it?
Yeah. That's the problem.
This is what you get for people like running businesses. How do I plan ahead for when I reopen? Oh, there's not enough clarity. And it's not just been in this country, Zach. I think there's been a few issues as well, like around the world. I mean, you've got in America, Joe Biden, for example. I'm going to say this now. Biden hasn't attended a press conference. According to Fox News, Tucker Carlson said that he hadn't attended a press conference since he had been in office for the first 2 months. What do you make of that?
But he is having a press conference on Thursday, though, Charlie, just to let you know. This was announced 9 days in advance. And to be fair, that's in all fairness as well, Charlie, I only remember Donald Trump having a press conference very little times in his first year as president. Most of the time, it was mostly spokesperson that's turned up. I mean, to be fair, he has his spokesperson pop up every day or so. The only thing he's probably damaged in his presidency is actually having a fall over on Air Force One. So that's the only thing that's damaged, his pride of being embarrassed on the national screen.
Yeah, I saw Fox News. A lot of them were finding it very crazy.
I think that's the only thing that he's done bad in his presidency so far. The only thing that he's done bad so far is fall over. But the benefit of the doubt, if we're going to mock him for falling over, we may as well mock the time when Donald Trump needs to have help down the stairs, whether he drinks water with two hands. Mike Pence also fell up, Air Force plane once. So he's, to be fair to Biden, well, he's not the only one that's had an incident going up the stairs in Air Force One, Charlie. And you have to go also back as well in history lessons, go back to Gerald Ford. Now, let me try and find this, Charlie. Let me find this, because we saw the incident with Joe Biden on the Air Force One going up the stairs. He tripped over 3 times. He didn't even hurt himself, Charlie. That's the thing that was amazing. He didn't even hurt himself. He just went up. He tripped 3 times, just dusted off his trousers, which just simply seen, just walked back up again. But that was nothing compared to what we saw, Charlie, with, my thing just cracked. I had a little disconnection, but I'm just going to try and show you.
Don't worry. We're on the world of modern technology.
Yeah, don't worry. I was going to share my screen with you, Charlie, to show you what happened to Gerald Ford, but it crashed. My tab crashed.
Yeah.
Actually. Well, just play this to just describe what happened to Gerald Ford, because he went down. It was wet. It was wet weather. He went down. Doing fine. He's still doing fine. Whoops! Oh, and down he goes, nearly legs first onto a very hard surface. It looked. I have to say, Charlie, Gerald Ford's fall looked nothing like Joe Biden's. Sorry, Joe Biden's fall looked nothing like Gerald Ford in the 1960s. Let's just say that. That's the only thing he's damaged. He's subject to memes. But that's the only thing he's seriously done bad as the president at the moment. Obviously, got a little problem at the border at the moment. You can debate that. That's fair enough. There's a lot of child migrants coming in at the moment. Cause concern there. It's up for debate. But the thing is, Charlie, it doesn't seem to be affecting his approval rating, which is up in the high, which is actually his overall approval is up at 60%, which I don't think Donald Trump ever got as president. So it's not cutting through, really, to be fair, Charlie, this border problem. It's not actually cutting through to the general public. Is that they seem to be all right with him, really, to be fair, how he's handling this. So, yeah. It doesn't seem to be affecting him too much. Let's just say that.
It's interesting what's happening in the United States, Zach, because there's a lot of things like as Joe Biden has been doing. I know Trump's been criticising a lot of a lot of his policies, and we know that the media have been sort of trying to ask him questions about his son Hunter Biden as well as one of his biggest issues. And Zach, before I wrap this up, what do you make of the probe that's been launched on Hunter Biden at the moment?
We haven't heard about much. I imagine there's investigation still going. I don't think the Bidens are going to interfere into it, because that's Joe Biden's promise that he will not interfere in Department of Justice cases. So we haven't heard much of it. Will we hear much about it? We will eventually, obviously. Big deal for him at the moment. Nobody's thinking about it in the general public. I think it's just still taking its course at the moment. But yeah, so I think we're not going to hear it for it in a while.
He did. I remember Zach. He did mention about this once at one of the presidential debates during the first one about Joe Biden's son, straight at him.
Yeah, that obviously didn't work because he wasn't phased. To be fair to Joe Biden, he wasn't even phased by it. You know, it was an expected attack line, and you know, I think he expected that. To be fair, really, he didn't react too emotionally. I don't think he was bothered by it, really. To be fair, but there we go.
Yeah, So let's see, guys, what you think about Joe Biden's son Hunter. Let me know down in the comments section below. There is lots of videos you can watch. You can watch Donald Trump speaking about that at the first presidential debate last year. I'd love to hear your opinions about this investigation that's being launched into Joe Biden's son. I'm sure it's dominating the media in the United States as well. And just quickly before I round this podcast up, the final thing I'll mention as well is that today we had Census Day across much of the UK. And Zach, could you explain to this exactly what Census Day is?
Yes, the census. This is this 10-year thing that happens every 10 years, where you just fill out a quick bit of information about yourself, what you do, and this goes into a bit more statistics. So it gives a real world indication of interesting numbers and statistics that go, Charlie, as well. So yeah, it's used in the future. It's a survey. It gives us a picture, according to this picture of all peoples and households in England, Wales, Northern Ireland. Scotland have delayed their census till next year, and it helps as well for local councils, organisations, government to help planning and funding public areas, transport, education, healthcare, all that sort of thing, Charlie. So that's the sort of thing as well that people have been doing all across the UK today, filling out the census every 10 years. Feels like it never comes up, but yeah, it's now here. Today was the day to do it. This was a mandatory requirement, because you don't do it, you get £1,000 fine. Yeah, so this is all about making statistics, interesting statistics. It just records information about the population and interesting other statistics, Charlie. There's lots of statistics that comes out of this, and we will have that out this year, presumably.
Yeah, we will, certainly. This will be something very, very interesting indeed. Thank you so much for watching the Globetrotter Newscast tonight, and we'll see you again next time for another episode of Globetrotter Newscast. And to all people out there, stay safe, everyone, and take care. Good night.